Hi everybody. A lot of you have been trying working with the coil mugs now, and one of the things that is happening is you're getting a lot of pots that are going wide instead of up. Totally normal. That is really one of the hardest things about coil mugs. So um, I'll try to see if I can figure out, I'll give you a few tips that maybe will help you solve this problem. There's usually about maybe three, maybe four ways that I can think of that this most commonly happens. And so it's a bit of a skill, right? So this is something that you have to learn. So I guess maybe a couple of things I should say before I start. If it's happening, well, like if you're on your very first pot or you just finished your first pot, and you know you don't like the shape of it, it's totally okay. Don't worry about it. It's like your first pancake. You know how when you make pancakes, the first one is always burnt? So give yourself permission to make a bad pancake, okay? So if your first one is going really wide, it's okay. Ultimately, you can crunch it back up, add some water to it, and mix it back up. That's a video about that so that you can reuse the clay. Also, you will get better. In fact, you will get better quite quickly. I often think that the early learning curve for working with clay is almost exponential. So within like second or the third piece, you'll actually kind of start to figure it out even without these tips. But here, let me give you those tips anyway. So a couple of things. One is just so you know, the inside of your pot, the shape of the inside of your pot is actually what determines the direction your pot is going to go. So when I tell you to make a cylinder, sometimes people make the outside looks like this, right? So it's a cylinder and you're like, great, it looks great. But the inside is not actually wide at the bottom. So while the outside looks like this, the inside looks more like this, right? So it's thicker at the bottom and then it goes up, and the angle, there's actually a little bit of angle there. So if the outside looks like this, but the inside looks like this is the direction your pot's going to go. So first tip is, if you're having trouble with that, make sure that you open up the interior much further. Make it really, really wide at the bottom. So that'll make a big difference. You can, of course, make a piece that starts this way and then curves out and then starts to go up. That's okay. It's a little bit trickier to work with the curve unless you let the curve part rest and then go up from there. So, okay, so that's trick one. Be aware of the shape on the inside. Trick number two, think about what's actually happening when you're pinching the coil. So the clay is going to go the direction of least resistance, okay? Going up automatically has resistance because it's having to fight gravity to go up. So think about this. If I'll take a little piece of this. All right, so if I take this little piece of coil and I put my fingers around it right in the middle and pinch this, which way is it going to go? Is it going to go up, or is it going to go this way and this way? It's going to go this way and this way, right? Because it's much easier if I pinch this for it to go out that way, get longer. In fact, in this case, it went down a little bit than it is for it to go up. So what happens is when you're pinching in the middle of the coil, when you put a coil on, you pinch in the middle, the coil stretches wide. That's what it wants to do. Because it stretches wide, your pot gets wider instead of taller. Does that make sense? So what you have to do is you have to think about a way to pinch it and force it to go up. So a couple of, actually, here's tip number three. So the third tip is actually related to that. Another reason why it goes wide instead of up is oftentimes you pinch it too much. Like you're actually trying to get it too thin too fast. So when you pinch, I would also encourage you not to try to pinch it really, really thin the first time. Just pinch a little bit and then come around, and then you can pinch it again, and then you can pinch it again until you get it where you want to. And in fact, you can pinch it a few times and then let it sit and rest and become soft leather hard, or even potentially, well, soft leather hard, and then pinch it some more. And then even when it gets close to hard leather hard, where it's getting really, really stiff, you can still pinch it a little bit more. So work from like a kind of a rough shape to a little bit more refined as you want it to be. Okay, so just remember that the clay wants to stretch wide instead of out. So how do you make it not go wide? I'm going to show you by trying to put a coil on this little tiny piece that's just started. So it just has like a coil, maybe 2 tiny coils on it. So in this case, I'm going to speed this up. I need to score and slip and add the coil, and then I'll show you. Okay, so the next place where sometimes things start to stretch out is right here. I've got the coil sitting on top of the mug. I haven't tried to push down on it yet. So one of the ways that it starts to stretch out oftentimes is when I go to push down on to join the inside part, I can sometimes actually accidentally push it. While I'm pushing down, the clay actually goes that way at the same time. So to stop that, when I push down on the inside, you need to make sure that you've got a hand on the outside supporting it. It's like the backboard. This hand is just saying, to the clay, like while you're pushing down, just stop it from going out. You don't have to push in, you just have to hold this steady. I oftentimes do this with my finger on the outside, or a set of fingers. So I'm pushing down here, but these fingers are actually acting as a backboard or a backstop to sort of stop the clay from going out. So be sure to do that. Okay, let me do that to attach this. I'll speed it up and then I'll explain the last one. Okay, now I've got my new coil attached to this, and you can actually see that it's not really going out, it's going mostly up. It flares out a little bit because this is thicker than the wall below it. So that makes it look like it's starting to flare out, but it's really directly on top. If you do this and it does start to flare out, you can actually kind of collar it back in just by using your fingers and just lightly push around, and you can kind of push the clay back to the middle before you start pinching. Also notice on this pot, the rim below was not even, and so it's still not even right now. That's actually okay for me. I'm really comfortable working this way. If that really bothers you, it's absolutely okay for you to like take a wire tool and cut the high point off and then work. You can do that every coil if you want to, but for me, it's really not a problem. Okay, so now the next part is, remember what I was saying, when you pinch, it wants to go wide. So to make it pinch towards the middle, what I recommend you do is, I'm gonna kind of try to show you this. So instead of pinching like this, you see, this is my inside finger, okay? Look how my inside finger is pushing out, but my outside finger is acting as a backstop. This is, again, if you do that, it's gonna go wide. What I wanna do is pinch in with my thumb, and I'm actually gonna start my thumb slightly lower than my finger. So it's gonna pinch in, and then it's going to slightly go up. It's like, so pinch up. pinch, up, like that. If I do that, it will really help. So I'm actually not in the middle of the coil. I'm slightly below the coil. And I'm gonna do a light pinch, and then I'm gonna pick up. I'm gonna do one more. So I'm gonna just move it over. I'm gonna pinch in just a little bit, and then I'm gonna pick up. So in, up, in, up. It's just like that movement. Okay, I'll do one more, hang on. Pinch in and then up. All right, now what you should see is that this area right there is the part where I just pinched. Do you see how this just got a little bit higher than the part that was below it? That's what you're looking for. So a light pinch and a little bit of movement upward. That's the direction you want. So I will do a few more of these. Now I'm gonna do it to me. It's very hard for me to figure out how to do it on the side. So I'm gonna do it towards me, but I'll show you the difference. So I'm pinching in and slightly up. I'm actually now using both hands to do it just because this is faster, but it's the same movement. It's just, so here's my fingers, and then I'm just pushing in and up with my thumbs. Not quite as dramatically as I just showed you, but it's just a little subtle movement that's in and up every time. And every time I pinch, I'm actually seeing the wall go up. Okay? Anytime it starts to go out a little bit, I can just use my hands and just collar it in a little bit. So you just want to do slow and steady progress all the way through. And there you go. It's going up instead of out. Okay? So I hope that really helps you. It takes a little bit of practice to get this right. So give yourself some patience, or be patient with yourself while you're trying to learn that skill. Also, I will say, if you're making bowls, bowls can be awesome. So enjoy the boldness of the bowl. You could do little places to hold chopsticks if you want to make a bowl for like noodles, or I can actually turn this one, it's not very tall yet, into a mug pretty easily by pushing in a little bit at the bottom. You see how it's starting to create a kind of a foot? And then I can go around and just lift the sides up so that it becomes more like a teacup. So if I keep doing that, I can get these sides to curve a little bit, and I'll end up with a teacup, okay? So yeah, anyway, enjoy however they're turning out. If they're going this way, you can really work with this in some cool ways. And if you keep practicing, you'll be able to get it to go up. See you later. Have fun.